7 children from 6 women, a contract for $107 million, and a voluntary forfeiture of 25 of them, just to get out of the team. Cocaine and a loaded gun in the car, a shootout in a mall parking lot 20 years after his last game in the pros. And today, at 55, a courtroom and the very real prospect of 10 years in prison. Once, the stands would rise the moment he stepped onto the court. 6-time All-Star, a straight path to the Basketball Hall of Fame seemed all but guaranteed. But behind the scenes, things were happening that would destroy it all. We'll tell it all in order, from childhood in a small Indiana town to the courtroom where his fate is being decided right now. Watch through to the end. If, like me, you enjoy looking back at the great NBA legends of past decades, and you're interested in their true stories and little-known facts that are rarely talked about, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Your support truly helps the channel grow and makes it possible to bring you more videos like this. Thank you. Now, let's continue. Tacoma, Washington, March 2023. A mall parking lot in broad daylight. Gunshots ring out. One person fires back. Minutes later, he's taken away in handcuffs. He is 53 years old. Once, fans across the country chanted his name, and commentators called him the Rain Man. 6-time All-Star, one of the most spectacular athletes in league history. A man whose dunks made entire arenas rise to their feet. And now, he stands in handcuffs in a parking lot, while prosecutors decide whether to file charges that could cost him 10 years of freedom. How did it come to this? Why did one of the most gifted players of his generation end up here, rather than in the Hall of Fame where he seemed destined to go? The answer doesn't start in Tacoma, or even Seattle. It starts in a small town in Indiana, in a family where no one suspected they were raising a future league star. Elkhart, Indiana, the mid-1980s. An ordinary teenager, no different from his peers. Then, something happens to him that rarely happens even to future pro athletes. Over 2 years, between 9th and 11th grade, his height jumps by nearly 33 centimeters. His body literally can't keep up with his own skeleton. He becomes like a teenager who's been accidentally stuffed into the body of a fully grown man, 6'10". In basketball, that kind of growth spurt is a rare stroke of luck. A boy who had merely been tall suddenly becomes a physical phenomenon. Concord High School notices quickly. 4 years on varsity, a state championship final in 1988, status as one of the top high school players in the country. Kemp earns McDonald's All-American honors, a spot among the elite high school basketball graduates. The biggest universities in the country line up for a chance to land him. But already here, at the very start, the first warning sign sounds. Not about talent, but about the character that would accompany that talent throughout his career. He chooses the University of Kentucky, one of the most prestigious basketball programs in the country, and almost immediately, he gets caught up in a scandal that would rock the entire program. Allegations of recruiting bribes, cash-filled packages, NCAA investigations. Kemp himself was never directly found guilty of anything. His role remained at the level of rumors and indirect suspicion. But the outcome was devastating. Academic issues, the pressure of the scandal, an atmosphere in which it was impossible to train and study in peace. In the end, he never steps onto the court in a Kentucky uniform. Not a single minute of college basketball. Not one game. It would seem that for a future NBA star, this should have been the end of a career that had barely begun. But the opposite happened. In 1989, with the 17th pick in the draft, he is selected by the Seattle Supersonics. He is 19 years old. He has not a single second of college-level play behind him. And now, he steps onto an NBA court against grown, established professionals, 3 weeks before his 20th birthday. The youngest player in the league at the time. Many expected failure. They got something entirely different. Seattle falls in love with him almost instantly. The team's announcer, Kevin Calabro, gives him the nickname that would stick for decades, the Rain Man. Explosive athleticism, incredible leaping ability for a player his size, dunks that made the crowd freeze for a second, then erupt in a roar. Within a couple of seasons, he's a starter. Soon after, he makes his first All-Star game, then a second, then 4 more in a row. 6 All-Star appearances, a rarity even for far more celebrated stars. The peak of his career and the peak of team success coincide in 1996. The Supersonics reach the NBA Finals. On the other side of the court, a team no one could stop that season. Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls, who won 72 regular season games, a record that would stand for years. Seattle loses in 6 games. A bitter defeat, but not a disgrace. Against a team many call one of the greatest in league history, losing was almost inevitable. Kemp, at that point, is among the league's best forwards. Ahead, it seemed, was only growth. But parallel to his on-court success, another story was unfolding, one that fans in the stands never suspected. In 1999, Sports Illustrated publishes a piece that explodes across the sports headlines. Kemp has 7 children from 6 different women. Not a rumor, not gossip, a confirmed fact that the entire sports press began talking about. Behind that number lies not just a scandalous headline, but a real human burden, financial and emotional at the same time. Sources close to the Sonics organization later told Associated Press journalists that the issue of child support was one of the key reasons for tension between Kemp and the club during his contract dispute. One source described it this way: "He realized just how expensive it was to be a multi-millionaire with children scattered across different cities across the country." One of the mothers of his children later said that Kemp himself struggled with the inability to be there for his kids, to watch them grow up, an ordinary human longing that sits uncomfortably alongside the image of an invincible athlete on posters. Kemp himself never publicly commented on the matter in detail, but it was against the backdrop of this pressure, financial, emotional, reputational, that his contract conflict with the Sonics front office unfolded. He demanded a renegotiation, believing his contributions to the team's success were undervalued. Talks dragged on, tension mounted, and in September 1997, the franchise makes a decision that would forever change his career. They trade him to the Cleveland Cavaliers. In Cleveland, he signs a 7-year, $107 million contract, at the time one of the largest deals in the league. And early on, he lives up to expectations. In his second season with the Cavaliers, he hits a career-high scoring average, 20.5 points per game, the best of his career. He leads the team in points and blocks. From the outside, it looks as if the trade from Seattle has sparked a new peak. But alongside the stats, troubling signs begin to grow. The press increasingly writes about weight problems. At nearly 6'10", his weight climbs from 230 pounds at his rookie debut to over 300 by the late 90s. The first articles about alcohol issues appear. The athlete, who not long ago amazed with his speed and leaping ability for a man his size, starts to look slower, heavier, more vulnerable. While the numbers in the box scores remain respectable, his body and mind are already starting to slip. What comes next will enter league history under the grim nickname fans gave his next team, the Jail Blazers. In 2000, Kemp is traded to the Portland Trail Blazers, and in his very first season with the new team, something that had been whispered about now becomes public. He voluntarily enters a rehabilitation program for cocaine addiction, not finishing the season. A year later, he receives a 5-game suspension for violating the terms of his post-rehab agreement with the league, essentially for failing to comply with mandatory testing and recovery program requirements. The club makes a decision rarely seen in professional sports. They release Kemp, restructuring his contract so that he voluntarily gives up $25 of the $46.5 million the team still owed him. He signs a one-year deal with the Orlando Magic, a team that, essentially, is giving him one last chance to show he can still play at the league level. The stats in Orlando speak for themselves: 6.8 points and 5.7 rebounds per game, numbers unthinkable for a player who, just a few years earlier, was among the NBA's best forwards. He is 34 years old, an age at which forwards of his caliber, like Karl Malone, were competing for MVP honors in the same era. But for Kemp, that age becomes the final stop of his professional career. After that season with the Magic, no NBA team offers him another contract. He doesn't give up immediately. He tries to come back. In the 2005 to 2006 season, a chance emerges to join the Dallas Mavericks, but he misses a mandatory workout check, and the team also loses an appeal for a hardship roster expansion. The window closes. Then a possibility arises with the Denver Nuggets. The club decides to go in another direction. Word comes of interest from the Chicago Bulls, but again the same story. A missed workout check ends the last real shot at returning to the league. He even tries playing in Italy, a final, almost desperate attempt to stay in professional basketball somewhere. But the league where he was once the Rain Man has closed its doors to him for good. The problems that pushed him out of the NBA didn't disappear when his career ended. They followed him onto the streets of Seattle. In April 2005, police stop him in the Shoreline suburb. In the car, they find cocaine, marijuana, and a loaded 9mm pistol registered in his name. Kemp later claims the drugs belonged not to him, but to a friend who was in the car. A year later, in July 2006, history repeats itself. This time in Houston, where he's pulled over for a missing license plate and then arrested for marijuana possession. He and his associate from the first case ultimately plead guilty to a misdemeanor, not a felony, and receive a sentence of 5 days of home detention with an electronic monitoring bracelet. After the verdict, he tells reporters outside the courthouse that he learned several important lessons from the experience. Nearly 20 years pass, and Shawn Kemp's life takes another sharp turn. This time, it seems, towards stability. In 2020, he opens a legal business, a chain of cannabis stores under his own name, Shawn Kemp's Cannabis. The first location opens in Seattle's Belltown neighborhood, the second a few years later in the Soto district. He tells journalists that he didn't approach this impulsively, that he found the right partners and the right plan, and that this is only the first of 5 planned locations. From the outside, it all looks like a second chance story. A former league star building a successful legal business after decades of scandal. And it is against this backdrop of relative stability that an event occurs which again puts his name in criminal headlines. Only now, far more serious than marijuana possession. On March 7, 2023, Kemp and his business associates go to a concert in Seattle. While they're there, his car is broken into and several items are stolen from inside, including a mobile phone and, according to court documents, game jerseys belonging to Kemp and his former teammate Gary Payton. The next day, March 8th, Kemp uses the phone's location tracking feature to find that the stolen device is in a car parked at the Tacoma Mall. He drives there. What happened next is described differently by different sources. Tacoma police initially record the incident as a shooting from a moving vehicle, a confrontation between passengers of 2 cars during which shots were fired. One car fled the scene, no injuries were reported, and a weapon was recovered at the scene. Kemp's attorney, Scott Boatman, gives a different version. According to him, Kemp approached the discovered car to retrieve stolen property, and it was the people inside who opened fire on him, with Kemp only returning fire in self-defense. He is arrested and placed in Pierce County Jail on suspicion of a felony. But the very next day, the county prosecutor announces that charges will not be filed immediately, leaving the case under further investigation. Kemp is released. It seemed the incident might end without serious consequences, but the investigation continued, And 2 years later, prosecutors filed far more serious charges. First, first-degree assault with a firearm. And then prosecutors added a second similar charge, plus a separate count of shooting from a moving vehicle. The overall prospect, up to 10 years in prison and a $20,000 fine. In the end, in the summer of 2025, Kemp, then 55, pleaded guilty to a reduced charge, second-degree assault. Sentencing was set for August 22nd. A story that began with a teenage growth spurt and dunks that thrilled entire arenas, more than 30 years later led to a courtroom and the prospect of prison time. And perhaps the bitterest outcome is not the court proceedings at all. Despite 6 All-Star appearances, status as one of the most spectacular and powerful players of his era, and a trip to the league finals, Shawn Kemp never made it to the Basketball Hall of Fame. Analysts and league historians openly name the main reason: not a lack of talent, but a combination of off-court circumstances that dogged him for decades. Addiction, financial and family chaos, legal troubles that never let go, even years after his last professional game. He remains one of the most talked-about figures of the 90s era, a player whose physical gifts seemed almost superhuman, and whose fate became a cautionary tale about the price of fame that arrives too early, without a foundation, and without preparation for what it will bring. If this story is familiar to you, and you want to learn about other players from the same era whose fates were no less dramatic, links to other videos on our channel will appear on screen now. Be sure to check them out. There are equally compelling stories of NBA stars from the 70s, 80s, and 90s waiting for you.